Hello and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm your host, Nancy Lewis. Today we're going to be talking about education funding in Kansas. We are here today in the Royals Hall of Fame, which is fantastic. You should visit it if you haven't. It's here behind us. I'm here today with Kansas State Senator Steve Fitzgerald. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy. I always appreciate being with you on these interviews. You always have such great venues to
I
do
know.
this.
How great is it? We're so lucky we get to do these interviews and go to great places too.
It is great.
So let's talk a little bit about education funding in Kansas. It's interesting. This Gannon decision that came down has two parts. Can you talk a little bit about what's happened and what is yet to happen?
Well, what's yet to happen is going to be very interesting, and I'm not sure I can even address it, to be quite frank, because we need to see what comes. That's what the future is for. But this past week, we addressed in the Senate Ways and Means Committee a bill that we passed out that would address the equalization requirement that the Supreme Court has called for. The Supreme Court, it might be interesting to note, in their decision said they considered no new data, and this is in a situation where the data changes monthly, and they suggested the use of the old formula from in this one area only of capitalization. We used that old formula before we did the block grant, and in fact we did that. And what we did is we took the rankings now as we have them among the districts, and then we realigned the funding so that it would fit the requirement that the court gave us. Now keep in mind, we have 286 districts in the state, and the ranking is based upon assessed valuation per pupil. Some of these districts have very volatile economies or valuations because of the price of oil, and some of them are very small in terms of the number of pupils, and they could change rapidly based upon people moving in or out of the district. And so the rankings would be constantly changing, and the way it's done is they put them in order by assessed valuation per pupil. They go up to 81.2% of the list, and then everything below that has to be equalized. They have to be given money to bring them to 81.2%. So those at the bottom get more, those at the top get less, those above the line get nothing. So some are, the change that's coming to the schools is going to be significant in terms of all of this. But it is implementation of the Supreme Court's decision.
So that's part one, which is deciding whether everything's equal, and then part two is deciding whether there is enough money, period.
Right, the adequacy. And the court has not yet ruled on adequacy, but they did earlier, and they mentioned the Rose standards, which comes from Tennessee decision back when. And those were already in Kansas statute, and we agree to the Rose standards. The problem is that nobody has figured out exactly how they can be applied practically, and how much is enough. The answer, this is 40 years of litigation, constant litigation on this. Nobody has ever come up with what a really good number is. They always come back with more. Right now we're spending over $13,000 per student in Kansas, which is a significant amount of money. The other thing that is kind of ignored is the amount of money that is spent on facilities. The bonding. We are at $5.4 billion bonding for schools. We're approaching $200 million a year for just the state's part of it, and then the districts have their own. So the price of education is going up. It's been going up. It continues to go up. We're going to get a nosebleed reading some of these numbers, and yet what we're being told is more. So we're trying to deal with it. We're working with it, but we really don't want to put that onus on the taxpayer any more than we have to.
It's going to be a very interesting year.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. We hope to see you next time on Newsmakers.